What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel for the very first Ask Me Anything episode of the 2022 Stanley Cup playoffs. Night 1 is in the books, and there's already a lot of things to talk about. Even though this was a very last-minute episode, you guys still asked a ton of fantastic questions, so as always, huge thank you to every single one of you. And just as a heads up, not every single question in here is going to be about the Stanley Cup playoffs, but the majority will be. So with that all being said, let's go ahead and get started. The first question comes from Ryan Plunkett Hockey, who says, I'm watching Canes and Bruins, and Ranta is playing amazing. Do you think he could be left in when Freddie comes back if he keeps up this play? You're definitely right about that. Ranta was fantastic in game 1, had a .967 save percentage, only allowed 1 goal on 2.41 expected goals against. If Ranta keeps up this play, it's definitely going to make things a lot easier for Carolina in the sense that they shouldn't feel any pressure to rush Freddie Andersen back from his injury, maybe if he isn't ready to come back just yet. Whichever way you look at it, it's only a positive thing for Carolina. Like, I'm somebody who kind of feels like you should always ride the hot hand, especially when it comes to goaltenders in the playoffs, just because goaltending in the NHL is so unpredictable, so weird, and guys can just go on crazy runs. So I feel like if Ranta continues to play the way he did in game 1, and again, it was just in game 1, but hypothetically, if he keeps this up, then don't rush Freddie Andersen back. Let Antti Ranta, ride out this hot streak, and then maybe when Andersen is ready to play and Ranta has a mediocre or a poor game, that can be your chance to start Freddie. Moving on now to the next question. This one comes from Blackhawks88, who says, why did the Lightning play so poorly in the first game of the Leafs and Lightning series? Also, is Jack Campbell turning his year around with the first game? Commenting during the second intermission. By the way, love the content and keep it up. Thank you for the kind words. A little bit bold of you to comment this during the second period of a Leafs game, but hey, the Leafs didn't choke this one away. That was a clinic they put on in game 1 against Tampa Bay. But I will say, and I think, John Cooper said this perfectly in his post game, the Leafs didn't really have to play that well to beat Tampa in this game. And I don't want to take any credit away from the Leafs here because, again, I do think they played well. The penalty kill especially really set the tone in that first period, especially with that 5-minute penalty kill, because of the Kyle Clifford major. But Tampa Bay really did look all out of whack, and they got a lot of power play opportunities in this game. There was one in, I think it was the third period or maybe late second period. Steven Stamkos had a wide open net. It was like a patented Steven Stamkos one-timer. He dropped to one knee to shoot it, and he just fanned on it and completely missed a wide open net. Tampa Bay really just didn't have it last night. And as far as your question goes, why did they play so poorly? It's kind of, hard to determine that. I feel like maybe they were caught off guard a little bit, and Toronto's crowd was unbelievable last night as well. They were so loud throughout the entirety of the game. Tampa Bay just really was never able to match Toronto's intensity at any point throughout the game, especially like right out of the gate. You could tell Toronto was fired up for this. They're ready to go, and that's something I definitely expect to see different in game 2. Tampa Bay should come out flying. Toronto is definitely going to see a much better Tampa Bay team. If you're a Toronto fan though, this game 1 really could not have gone any better. Austin Matthews scored. Mitch Marner had a great game, including a goal, which broke his drought of 18 playoff games without one. However, they're still facing the back-to-back defending Stanley Cup champions. They're going to get Tampa Bay's best in game 2, I think, so this one's definitely still far from over. This next question comes from Hayden Hallett, who says, if Edmonton gets beat by LA in round 1, how do you move forward with this roster? Do you trade a big piece or hope for a different result next year? If you're the Oilers, I definitely don't think you make any crazy decisions like trade McDavid or Draisaitl. I think like the only way that one of those guys gets traded is if they request a trade, and I'm not quite sure if that would happen if they get bounced in round 1 here against LA. The one roster move that they absolutely have to make, even if they win or lose this series, I feel like, is get a goaltender. I've been saying over and over again, the months leading up to the playoffs, I don't trust a Mike Smith and Mikko Koskinen in tandem in the postseason, and I even said that in my Stanley Cup playoff prediction video when talking about the Edmonton and LA series. I said, even though Mike Smith is on an absolute heater to finish out the year, I still didn't think he's a goaltender at this point in his career that can get you very far in the playoffs, and it was just game 1, but not a great showing from Mike Smith. I'm sure by now, even if you didn't watch the game, you've all seen on SportsCenter or on Twitter the clip of Mike Smith just passing the puck right up the middle in a 3-3 game with 6 minutes left. And although Mike Smith actually jumped back in and made an amazing save initially to kind of save himself, I think it was like 5 to 8 seconds later, the puck ended up in the back of the net. So still directly resulting from that turnover by Mike Smith, they got scored on in a tie game late in the third period of a playoff game. I'll show you guys this picture here as well when Mike Smith had the puck behind the net. Why didn't he just make the simple pass there over to his defenseman, which is what most goaltenders do? I think Mike Smith's defense of his play, he said he was trying to make something happen. He definitely did make something happen, but unfortunately it was just for the wrong team. And I don't want to drag on Mike Smith too much because mistakes happen. Goaltenders do this a lot where they, screw it up, pass it to the other team when they're trying to play the puck. Andrei Vasilevskiy actually literally did it last night against Toronto. Matthews' second goal, Vasilevskiy put it on a platter better form, but that game was already a blowout as opposed to the Oilers game being, tied late in the third period. So the Vasilevsky one won't get too much attention. It's still first to 4 wins though. I'm not going to write Edmonton off by any means just because they lost game 1 on home ice. I expected this to be a long series coming into it. In my bracket, I had Edmonton in 7. But anyways, I've kind of rambled off track from your initial question, so I'll answer it again. The Oilers' big roster move in the offseason, win or lose, no matter how far they go in the playoffs, has to be getting a longer term option in net. Moving on now to the next question. This one comes from Tyler Aaron, who says, if the Capitals and the Penguins do poorly in the playoffs, do you think that both teams will go in rebuild mode? Just on the surface, I'm going to say no. I feel like both of these franchises owe it to, in Washington's case, Alex Ovechkin, and Pittsburgh owes it to, Crosby, Malkin, and those guys to try and compete as long as they have those guys on the roster and those guys are still playing at a high level, which they both are. I feel like in the case of Pittsburgh, it is a little bit more interesting because Malkin, Letang, Rust all set to become UFAs at the end of the season, so we could see a pretty significant roster turnover in Pittsburgh over the offseason. Maybe they shake things up a little bit, go through a little bit of a retool, but I don't think either of these teams, Washington or Pittsburgh, will ever enter a full-fledged rebuild as long as they have, in Washington's case, Ovechkin, and Pittsburgh's case, Crosby on the team, and those guys are still playing well. This next question comes from Sprouse, a little bit of a non-playoff question here. As the regular season ended, were there any teams that didn't make it and got you surprised? Example, Vegas, Islanders, possibly Canucks. Well, you nailed 2 of them there, Vegas and the Islanders. Before the season started, I predicted the Islanders to finish first place in the Metro Division in the regular season, and I also predicted Vegas to finish first in the Pacific during the regular season. So the fact that neither of those teams even made the playoffs, obviously very surprising. In the Islanders case, I feel like maybe things would have been a lot closer if they didn't have to start the year on, what was it, like a 2-month road trip or just something ridiculous like that. And for Vegas, sure, it was a disaster of the year when you just look at the result that they didn't make the playoffs, when you consider the fact that, they've done all these huge moves since becoming a team, signing Pietrangelo, trading for Pacioretty, Stone, and now Jack Eichel. You guys know all the big moves they've made. But you can't really blame them too much because their injury luck this season was absolutely ridiculous. They always had a significant piece out of the lineup or multiple at a time. I definitely think Vegas is going to be completely fine though. I think next season they're going to be back to being one of the better teams in the league in the postseason, poised to go on a deep run as long as they stay healthy. The next question we have comes from Denku, who says, what are your thoughts on Ville Husso? He is amazing right now, a shutout in his very first playoff game. He was fantastic last night, becoming the first goaltender in Blues history to get a shutout in his playoff debut. One of my questions heading into this series for the Blues was, who would they start in game 1? Would it be Ville Husso, who, served as their starter and the better goaltender for the majority of the season, or Binnington, who really picked it up late and obviously has more playoff experience? Of course, the Blues went with Ville Husso, and that proved to be the right decision because he was lights out. I will say that was one of the worst games I've seen Minnesota play in a long time, but of course, a factor in that is how well St. Louis played and how well Ville Husso played, shutting the Minnesota Wild out. He definitely outdueled Marc-Andre Fleury in this game. Moving on now, this one comes from Colin Becker. This is an interesting one. After seeing the results of the first games of the playoffs, have any of your series predictions changed? I'm never gonna change a prediction after the fact, after I already make a video on it, but I will say I'm definitely a lot less confident in a couple of my predictions, those ones being taking Minnesota in 7 and taking Boston in 6. The Oilers lost as well, but I'm still confident they can get that done in 7. I expected that to be a long series anyway. I'm especially worried about Minnesota though, just the way they lost in that game. They were rattled. You had Jared Spurgeon, trying to snap Pavel Buchnevich's ankle, basically. I'm sure you all seen that, where he just cross-checked his ankle. He got fined for it. I honestly feel like that should have been a suspension, because literally what else are you doing that for other than intent to injure? Again, I'm definitely not going to change any of my predictions, but I would say I'm definitely most worried about Minnesota, especially if Ville Husso is outdueling Marc-Andre Fleury, then I don't really think they have a chance to win this. And now for the final question of this Ask Me Anything episode, we'll finish off with this one because it's a hot topic right now. From Brendan, do you think goalies playing the puck actually helps their team? It seems like a high-risk play that often just becomes a turnover. This is a tough question. It's really a loaded question. Obviously, part of it is how good is your goaltender at playing the puck, because it is a skill for goaltenders to be able to come out and play the puck and make quick decisions. And there's obviously goaltenders in the league that are much better than others at playing the puck. It's just the same as, some players have a better shot than other players, or they're faster than other players. It's a skill. And even though things happen like last night where Vasilevsky, gave Austin Matthews a free goal and Mike Smith had a blunder that led to the Kings taking the lead late in the third period, I feel like almost 95% of the time, if a goaltender goes to play the puck and they make the smart, simple play and don't try to force anything, then it does help the team. I'll try to describe this the best I can because plays like this happen, dozens of times in an NHL game. Say the forechecking team will dump the puck in and say it's on its way around the opposing team's net, and the team that dumped it in has a forechecker going to get the puck on the other side of the net, and they will be the first to get there. The defending team won't get there first, but oftentimes you'll see the goaltender go behind the net, cut it off, stop the puck, and then give it to his defenseman, and the team will break out. That helps a team a ton, and like I said, plays like that happen so many times in a single NHL game. I feel like the success rate of goaltenders playing the puck is actually really high. It's just when they do make mistakes, you see it all over the place, right? It's in the misplays of the night on SportsCenter and Sportsnet and stuff like that. It's all over Twitter. So I feel like in the end, ultimately, playing the puck as a goaltender, if you are smart and you don't try to force anything and that's a skill that you're good at, it often does help your team, yes. So that is going to wrap up the very first Ask Me Anything episode of the 2022 Stanley Cup playoffs. I'm thinking of doing these twice a week instead of once a week during the first round, and then, during the second round and third round, we'll go back to once a week. I'm interested to hear your guys' thoughts on that, so let me know down below in the comments. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more like this, please be sure to drop it a like. That's the best way to show your support. And most importantly, if this was your first time checking out the channel and you want more NHL content just like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I'll talk to you all soon.